First up, he was the runner-up for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2016. You might remember the senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. You are more popular than Stormy Daniels' lawyer. Sounds like they want you to run again. We'll get to it. But there's an election before 2020. And
yes, there is.
I know you've been going around saying, and I couldn't agree more, it's the most important election ever. I'm going to ask you why, but first, a little bone to pick with you politicians. I have been hearing since I was 18 years old, every election is the most important election in your lifetime. So you all cried wolf on this one, and a lot of people are not going to believe it, but this one really is the most important. Please tell us why.
It's the most important because we have a president who is a pathological liar. We have a president who has strong authoritarian tendencies, who wants to, every day, undermine American democracy. You know, and in my state and all over this country, you have men and women who have fought and died to defend American democracy, and this guy looks all over the world, and he kind of likes all of these authoritarian leaders. He attacks the media every day, trying to make it harder for them to be critical of him. And we have a president who is a billionaire himself, who has surrounded himself with billionaires, who gave huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country, and then brings forth a budget that would cut Medicaid by $1 trillion, Medicare by $500 billion, cut nutrition programs for hungry kids, cut Social Security, disability. A president who told the American people that he was going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that, Bill?
Cheaper and better.
Cheaper and better. And then he supports legislation to throw 32 million people off of the health care that they have.
So when does that sink in with his people? Because gas prices are going up because he shelved the Iran deal. People do not have as good health care, and some have been thrown off. He's going to lose jobs because of this tariff trade war he's starting. When does the cult of personality wear away in favor of, wait, you're actually hurting me?
What we need to do is a couple of things. Frankly, from a political point of view, it is not good enough to simply attack Trump every single day. What we need to do is bring forth an agenda that working people all over this country are going to respond to. And let me be very clear, and I've said it before. In 2016, it's not that Trump won, it's the Democrats lost. And for too long, the Democratic Party has been dominated by wealthy campaign contributors. They got to open the door to people who work with their hands, people who take showers at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Open the door to young people. And we have a generation out there of some of the brightest, most decent young people in the history of this country. Beautiful young people. And what we have to do, Bill, let's not forget this. 4 years ago in 2014, we had the lowest voter turnout for a midterm election since World War II. 37% of the people voted. If we increase that voter turnout by 50%, Democrats win the House, win the Senate. And that's what we have
to do. Okay, so you mentioned the Democrats lost last time, but your agenda won. You may not have won the nomination,
right?
But you talk about an agenda. They're all behind that now. Yes. I mean, Medicare for all.
Yep.
You know, all the people who are running for president, we kind of know who they are, and income inequality, all those issues.
Right.
But an agenda is not a message. They are different. Trump is better at messaging. His voters don't seem to care about an agenda or anything except build a wall, lock her up. What's the Democrats' message? If you had to boil it down to something that would fit on a hat, which is about all people can take in at this point, what is the Democratic message?
The Democratic message is that we need a government that represents working families, not billionaires. An agenda that says that health care is a right, not a privilege. An agenda that speaks to the young people and says that we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free and lower student debt. That's an agenda that wins.
But Trump has shown that the American people, they elected him. I understand he didn't win the popular vote, but he got a lot of votes, and so and his popularity rating keeps going up, not down.
Yeah.
It's almost in the range of like a normal president, which is really scary because he certainly is not that. So they obviously don't care about so many things they used to care about, like decorum or policy or democracy or freedom of the press. So in this new arena, and he is brilliant at controlling the debate and controlling airtime. What does a Democrat have to do to compete on this new stage? It is a new stage.
That's a fair point, and the airtime issue is very difficult. You know, people say, why aren't the Democrats talking about issues? Well, you know what? In many cases, Democrats are, but we're overwhelmed with Trump's tweets and the absurdity of the day. So I think what Democrats have got to do, basically, is go into Trump country and talk to people who are now living in desperation. You know, the truth of the matter is, one of the reasons, in my view, that Trump won is that he sensed that there were millions of people in this country who were ignored by the political establishment. They're ignored by the elite. They're working longer hours for lower wages. They're scared to death about the future facing their children. And he said, and he lied, I hear you. Our job is not to lie, to have the guts to deal with the serious issues that they face and to take on the people who have power in this country. And let me just mention, if I might, Bill, I'm here in LA today. Tomorrow, you know where I'll be? I'll be with workers in Disneyland who are working for one of the largest corporations in America that gave their CEO a $400 million compensation package, but are paying their workers starvation wages. And I'm going to stand with those workers getting decent wages and forming a union. And later in the day, we're going to be dealing and working with folks from Black Lives Matter, addressing a broken criminal justice system, which more and more people understand needs fundamental reform.
Okay, so you sound like you're busy. I'll let you go with one more question. It sounds like you have a big agenda. And by the way, you don't look any different than the last time you ran. So if you don't run, don't do it just because of age. Don't let them intimidate you about that.
I will not. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
But the Democratic Party is traditionally pulled apart by this battle that we saw in 2016 between the left and the center. Hillary Clinton's a centrist. You ran a whole different kind of campaign. How do we unite them? Because that's the path to victory is to unite them. The last one to do it was Obama, who was really more of a centrist, but people saw him as a leftist because they wanted to.
I think we are coming together around a progressive agenda, as you indicated, Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage, climate change, et cetera. And I think, frankly, that at the end of the primary season, every person in the Democratic community will understand that we have infinitely more in common than our differences are, and that we got to unite, we got to bring our community together to take on the most outrageous president in the history of this country.
Good luck, Bernie. Thank you for coming by and making time. I'll be with you if you run again. Okay, thank you very much. Bernie Sanders, let's meet our panel.